What's cracking, everybody? Zerfelros here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Bad League content. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the Mountain Cup as she's sitting 4 feet to my right, watching Fantasia 2000, and the cutest little girl I've ever... Look at this. Look at this. She's just so... You can get past that. She's just so cute. So cute. She's enjoying Fantasia 2000. It's one of her favorite movies. Anyway, we're going to be talking about the Mountain Cup today. So cute, which is going to be a cup in the Great League which revolves around rock, ice, ground, and steel types. No Swampert is allowed in this meta, which is fine. There's plenty of other Pokemon that we can use to our advantage to play this cup. And as you can see, I have my budget Mountain Cup icon because as of now Niantic has not yet pushed the Mountain Cup icon, so I have to use my own anyway. Whatever, it's fine. So just some quick picks in this meta that I think are going to be really strong. SCAV obviously being number one in the meta. It basically has the move set and typing to beat every other type in this meta by itself, so you're going to have to play around SCAV a lot. I believe Diggersby is definitely going to be solid in the number 2 slot, being one of the best safe swaps I think in this entire cup because it's got the bulk, it's got the move set, and it's definitely got really no hard counters. There's very few flyers in this meta, very few things that can really deal with a Diggersby straight up. You know, even SCAV has to be afraid of the double super effective fire punches. Those hurt. So another couple of picks that I think are going to be really solid in this meta. I like Gliscor a lot. I know that the Whiscash, Daddy Cash money is going to be super strong. I think Frostlass could be really good as well. Obviously, you see it's in my first team here. And then pining down the rankings just a little bit here, I find that Scizor could have a place in this meta as long as it can stay away from the Diggersby and other, you know, ground steals. I think it has good play against most really the ice types. But I think it's certainly going to have to wait for the meta to evolve into a point where you can reliably have Scizor out without it being stuck up against things like G-Fisk and things like Diggersby. Now, the nice thing about Scizor is it's got a fast and consistent moveset, which isn't really walled by anything. So, you know, your mileage may vary. But anyway, let's get into the teams that I've picked out here. I got 5 really strong teams that I think are going to do really well in this cup. The first one being this here on the screen, Frostlass Double Ground with G-Fisk and Diggersby. Now, the nice thing about this team is the Frostlass is strong against most counter users and fighters in the general, so that's going to be things like SCAV, Lucario, Lycanroc, etc. Because it's got that Ghost subtyping, it resists the fighting type damage, which the 2 in the back are super effective again, or do super effective too. And the Diggersby is a really strong safe swap because it really doesn't have so many weaknesses in this meta, right? It's got, obviously, you're not going to have fun dealing with ice types. You're not going to have a lot of fun dealing with any grass types, but anything that this Pokemon is weak to, being the ice, grass, etc., for the most part, it's got Fire Punch's coverage. It's going to be able to handle it. I think that the worst thing that you could do to it is stick a Gliscor on it, and even then, you know, that's a pretty close matchup from when I look at the Sims. So you're using Diggersby as the safe swap here. You know, team's got almost perfect, you know, perfect scores here on PvPoke. Whiscash is going to be an issue. Walrein could be an issue. So those 2 Pokemon you really do have to play around. And similarly, you have like Lapras, Quagsire. So Mud Boys and Ice Waters are going to be really something you'll have to play around. You'll manage your energy and your Pokemon well. But for that, that's really, like, this team has super strong coverage across the meta, and you could, if you wanted to, sub the G-Fisk out for another ground type that you think is really good, or even something else that's kind of weak to fighting that cores well with Frostlass. I think that any choice here could be good for the G-Fisk slot, but really like, you could do like a Diggersby, Ninetales, you know, and Alola Ninetales and Frostlass line as well. Those are all good, very good cores. Very good overall coverage on the meta here, as long as you've got something that cores with your Diggersby that can really handle flying types. You better not fall off that bed, you goof. Alright. Please don't fall. Anyway, let's talk about the second team here as we get on in this video. The next one is going to be, as I was saying about Scizor, I think, I'm going to be honest, play any other Pokemon that you feel very comfortable with in the slot of Scizor. Scizor's there as the save swap to really truly draw out the hardest counter to your SCAV. However, you could certainly do well with something like Registeel, or you could, whatever floats your boat for that last slot. The coverage on this one is sitting in an A. The Scizor is really not doing as much because, you know, obviously it's not going to have as strong of a moveset as SCAV is. It doesn't core with this Whiscash as well, but it still does okay. It sets up a situation where your opponent's going to bring out the Bug Steel counter. They may even think that you've sent out Escav if they're too fast. They may. I just keep looking because she's going to fall off of something, I swear. Little kid, man. But you think that they're going to probably bring in like the Skarmory or whatever they're going to have that's going to be able to beat that Escav. So that's what it's there for. But you could use anything else as long as it does that job. So really, you know, Skarmory, I mean, Genesect, other Escavs. Escav is not necessarily going to destroy this team on paper. Whiscash is fairly neutral. It could go either way. I imagine Whiscash probably wins the 2 shields because it gets some more mud bombs than Escav can get to anything else. So still super strong core here. And it's really featuring the Whiscash and Escav core. I feel like that core by itself is really, really stupid strong, and you could do a lot of things with it. So let's move on to the next team here and talk about it, which is going to be a little bit more of an RPS-y sort of balanced team, but Ferrothorn could definitely have place, just like it had place in the Color Cup. I think that it could do well here because of all of the, think about it, right? Ground, ice, rock, and steel it's not so super great against, right? Steel's kind of like that only thing that it doesn't really care for. So what we want to do is we want to pair that Ferrothorn up with things that could beat the steels in this meta. And Frostlass on the safe swap, you know, if it gets ahead on energy, has extra shields or anything like that, Frostlass could just be super good, and that's across just about any limited meta. And I think Gliscor fits in really nicely here as a really strong core breaker. Ferrothorn is one of the hardest answers to the ice types in this meta, except for Abomasnow, but that's why we're running it with Flash Cannon rather than Thunder. I feel like that would be a better fit for this team, and Flash Cannon probably has more targets, let's be honest. And that's pretty much going to be the team here. So Gliscor is really going to be the core here, and you could run it with Shadow or non-Shadow. Either way is totally fine. Frostlass able to set up things like shield advantage, potentially get you switch advantage, or lure out the hardest counter to Gliscor, in that being potentially another ice type that double resists the ice type damage. Like they may bring in their Walrein, they may bring in their Lapras, they may bring in something that really didn't want to see the Ferrothorn that could beat the Gliscor. So this is where the coverage lies here. You're going to be core broken by some things. You know, Lucario's on here as a core breaker. It beats Gliscor if it lands a Shadow Ball. That's really it. If it doesn't land the Shadow Ball, you're doing fine. And then there are some other things that are really not going to be very common. So Skarmory is going to be a core breaker to quite a few teams. So that being said, I mean, someone's going to run a Skarmory team, and they're probably going to do well with it because almost every team that I've made this week is Skarmory. I'm just assuming no one's going to want to play it. Yeah. Because Diggersby does fairly well against Skarmory because of its bulk and the fact that it's got Fire Punch. But that being said, Scizor is another one. The Alolan Shrew / combination here, they're going to be pretty good against this team. So obviously, yes, there will be things that core break any team, but Mountain Cup, thankfully, doesn't seem like it has any like super heavy RPS elements to it. It seems like that this 4-type cup is going to be just kind of like Color Cup in the fact that it's going to have a lot of, you know, Pokemon that do really well, and they can have Pokemon that beat the Pokemon that do really well, and I think Gliscor is going to be one of those Pokemon that beats the Pokemon that does really well. So you could focus a team around this. I think that Ferrothorn's good. You could definitely run like Abomasnow instead of Ferrothorn. I think that I like Ferrothorn more just because it has the ability to hit most of... What are you eating? You shouldn't be eating anything. She's a goat. Eats everything, I swear. The Ferrothorn's just going to be a really strong answer to pretty much all the ices in this meta because of the moveset it's got. Abomasnow is probably one of the hardest ones, but again, like I said in the earlier, it's running a Flash Cannon. So let's take a look at team number 4, see if you like it. We got Walrein, Escavalier, and we've got Lucario. Now, I know my boy Remy's going to love this one because he loves Lucario like no one's business, but it's his favorite Pokemon. Who can blame him? This team by itself on paper does not do well against opposing things that have counter. So you would see an Escav lead and you'd probably cry. So what you do in that situation is maybe you bring in your own Escav. The nice thing about that is that the Escav probably won't stay in. Hopefully they bring in a flyer, and then you can farm that down with Walrein, get an Earthquake off on their Escav, maybe make some magic happen somewhere, and then Lucario sweeps their team. Kind of a dream situation, but that being said, I think that you could do something else with the Walrein potentially, just to make sure that you're not triple weak to counter. I didn't want to add Frostlass again to another team because I had one already, but Frostlass could do well here. Alolan Ninetales could maybe do okay here. Just the whole team would then be weak, really weak to fire, and Diggersby and not be having a good time. So really, that lead situation could be whatever you want it to be, depending on what you see. If you're seeing a lot of SCAV in the back, you know, SCAV, I don't know. This team gets an A for coverage, but honestly, the SCAV is really sus. I think that if you see an SCAV, you just try to get your own SCAV on it, or try and get, you know, health or shield or energy advantage on your Lucario to finish it off, maybe, and then let Walrein. Because typically, a team with SCAV on it, the other side of that team, whether it be in the lead or the back, something's weak to Walrein, usually. I just didn't want to double up on too many Pokemon on the same on different teams, but anyway, SCAV is really the only thing this team doesn't have an answer for. Everything else in this meta, there's at least one solid answer on this team. That's because Lucario is a sim hero getting a power punch bait and a shadow ball. But who cares? Lucario's cracked, and we all know it. That's all that matters. Last team that I've got for you all today is going to be Lapras Double Ground. That's going to be the Double Ground that resists fighting. So here we have, Escavalier is the polarity here. We've got two Pokemon that just destroy Escav, and Lapras on the lead for some consistent Ice Shard Surf damage, and it has Skull Bash because we don't like Walrein leads. Excuse me. And if a Walrein swaps it on your Gliscor and farms it all the way down, it's bad news bears. I can't help it. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. Hopefully that doesn't happen to you if you run this team. I feel like this team's going to have really solid play if you can keep the back line away from a Walrein. Maybe, you know, the Walrein leads are where they're going to be. Hard to say, but I mean, this team just looks like a lot of fun. Plus, it poo-poos all over Escav in the back, so we like that. That's kind of what you have to do, but when you think about it, you know, if someone's running Aurorus, is probably one of the bigger ones. Lapras and Walrein, definitely going to be some big core breakers here. You know, Ferrothorn's also going to have an absolute heyday with this team, so there are certain things that definitely could pose a huge threat to this team. So I feel like this team's going to be more of a fun team, sort of an anti-meta team, after you see the Walrein sort of phase out when everyone's running things that beat Walrein. Like Escav is going to be everywhere, and this is going to have to, this is a really RPS because you have Diggersby on one end and you have Escav on the other. If you can line those up properly with this team, easy claps. But if there's other stuff that beats this team on the other opponent's team, like Ferrothorn, Aurorus, like we talked about, Walrein, that could be a very dangerous team to face against. But hopefully you don't see someone, you know, running all of those. Instead, you see people running the Diggersby Escav core, which is going to be the more likely scenario because they're the two most cracked Pokemon in this cup. And that being said, I'm going to stop right there. We're going to end that video right here, and that is going to be me. Now, one real quick note, if you guys would like to, you could easily get early access to these teams and more by joining my Patreon Discord. In the description, there's a link, and you can join it for as low as $5 USD a month and get early access to all my teams, meta-analysis, and basically everything that I could possibly do to plan this game out. Like, I plan teams, roster, picks, everything for the patron. There's so much going on in that Discord that it's nuts. I highly recommend it, and if you're in for coaching this season, I do have a Medify account where you can book me for coaching sessions. Check that out in the description as well, and that's going to be it for me. I'm done chilling myself, and we'll talk to you guys next rotation. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know how your Mountain Cup goes and how you're looking forward to it, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.